We are on the video record. Today's date is Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, and the time right now where the witness is approximately 8:38 a.m. My name is Bill Roach. I am the videographer and will be handling exhibits. Our reporter today is Miss Cindy Elliott. Will counsel please introduce themselves and whom they represent, starting with Miss Yanaros.
Yes, Valerie Yanaros for the plaintiffs, Mr. James Corey Goode and Goode Enterprise Solutions.
And London Webb on behalf of the deponent, and also Leon Kennedy is attending remotely by Zoom, and my law clerk Peter Tarantino intermittently will be listening in and watching in at times today. I would note that time is 8:39 a.m. I know that the videographer wanted me to turn off my mic and have just the mic in front of the deponent. I was not willing to do that. The good news is Cindy Elliott, the court reporter, has confirmed that not only I am clear with my 1 through 10, but also my client. When my client reads 11 through 20, the court reporter described it as very clear. So I believe that audio and video is ready to go. So we're ready for some questions.
And we'd like to note our objections for the record, Mr. Webb, that you were not cooperative at all, that you have now caused this deposition to begin 40 minutes late. You have absolutely declined to even test Miss Youngblood's microphone when it's her deposition, that we need to hear her and not you. I'd also like to note for the record that Mr. Roach has also stated that there is a lag. We can all see the lag, and that will be very obvious to anybody watching this. And also that we called Judge Mix's chambers to have a hearing. She unfortunately was not able to have the hearing, but her clerk, Matt West, said for us to note our objections in the record, and if it continued or we needed to have a discovery dispute, to put it that way. So if this does continue, this sort of combativeness, we will shut down the deposition and be asking for sanctions. Mr. Webb has noted that he would prefer to have an in-person deposition. So if we do have to shut this down because he's not being cooperative, then we'll go ahead and let him pay for the in-person deposition. We'd also like to note for the record that this is going to be by the rules, that the defendants have not noted any other time constraints that were necessary, and we are designating this deposition as confidential per the protective order.
I would disagree on my side as far as decline to test my client's microphone. I went in front of my client to test the microphone. There is feedback. I'm not willing to have my microphone turned off while my client's microphone is on. I understand there's a lag. You did originally notice this deposition to be in person. I do suggest all major depositions are in person, but it's your choice. The good news is the court reporter, who's the most important person in the room, read on the readback of 1 through 10 of my voice, and on 11 through 20, she described as quote unquote very clear. So I think we're ready to go. It was my suggestion to call Judge Mix's chambers. You took me up on it. I think it's pretty simple. As long as the court reporter is able to take down testimony, then everybody's in a good place and we're ready to go. So let's begin.
Well, and we will shut this down if we cannot get a clear record. And if Ms. Elliott states that, then we'll go ahead and move that way. I would also like to note for the record that you did not use just Ms. Youngblood's microphone. It was a couple of different. You had your phone connected as well, and wouldn't put that on mute so we could get a clear practice run. All right. Okay, Ms. Youngblood, good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. Can you hear everything?
Shall I go ahead and swear in the witness?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
If you can raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Youngblood, thank you for being here this morning. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Adrienne Youngblood, Adrienne. Youngblood, Youngblood.
Okay, thank you. And do you have a middle initial?
Yes, it's M.
Okay. Did you ever have any other middle initial?
No.
Okay. Please state your address for the record.
15300 Cliff Road, Nevada City, California, 95959.
Okay. Mr. Youngblood, have you ever been deposed before?
No.
Okay, we'll go through a couple of ground rules and then we'll get into some questions. I'd like for you to answer all of my questions verbally. So that means no uh-uhs or shaking your head. We need to make a clear record for the court reporter. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. And I would like for you to let me finish all of my questions before you start answering. Again, this is to make a clear record for the reporter, and I will let you finish your answers before I ask the next question. Do you understand?
Yes.
Your attorney is going to be making objections during our conversation today. The only time I want you to not respond is if he instructs you not to respond. Otherwise, let him make his objection and then answer my question. Do you understand?
Yes.
And do you have anything in front of you right now?
Just the microphone.
No papers or anything like that?
No.
And who's in the room with you?
Lyndon Webb, my attorney.
Okay, Mr. Webb, I didn't ask you the question. I asked your client. So if you'd let her answer, I'd appreciate that. Okay, I don't want to know any privileged information. If I ask a question that might get into some sort of privileged information between you and your attorney, I want you to answer the question to the best of your knowledge without divulging privileged information. Do you understand?
Yes.
You can take as many breaks as you want. This is your day today. So the only thing I ask is that if there's a question pending on the table, answer that question before you take a break. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So we have 7 hours today. Your attorneys have advised me that you don't have any other time constraints. Is that correct?
Correct.
We'll take a break for lunch. If you have an idea of when you want to do that, we can make an agreement on the record right now. Otherwise, we can go until you need a break.
Okay.
Have you spoken to anybody since the last deposition? About the last deposition?
And you're saying other than her attorneys or anybody from our office, right?
That was my instruction.
You can answer.
No.
Do you understand that the deposition that we are doing today is confidential?
Yes.
And what is your understanding of what that means?
That there is no dialogue about this deposition outside of this room, I would think.
Okay. Do you have any other aliases besides the name that you just gave us at the beginning of this deposition?
Aliases, no.
You don't go by any other name except for Adrienne Youngblood?
Correct.
And does anybody else live with you at the address that you just gave?
Yes.
Who is that?
And only for people over the age of 18, but you can answer.
I share a house with my husband, Richard Soto.
Just him?
In the house, yes.
Does anybody live outside of the house?
We have other dwellings on our property
Okay, and who lives
that are
there?
occupied. My daughter, Carly Youngblood,
How do you spell that?
Karlie.
And how old is she?
is 39 yesterday.
Happy birthday to her. Anybody else besides Carly?
Anthony Lorenzo,
Okay, and who's Anthony Lorenzo?
he's my youngest son,
Okay. And how old is he?
29.
Anybody else?
Adam Wahlberg,
Okay, and who is he?
he's a tenant.
And how long has he lived there?
About a year.
Anybody else?
Corinne Collins,
How do you spell that?
Corinne. Collins, Collins. She's a tenant.
And how long has she lived there?
5 years.
Anybody else?
No. Not at this time.
About a year ago, and I know it's been a while, we had been discussing scheduling some depositions, and we were informed that your husband had passed. Do you recall that?
Yes, it was my ex-husband, my first husband, Mr. Youngblood, the father of my children.
And what was his first name?
Thomas,
Do you recall the date it was that he passed?
excuse me? I
Do you
can't
recall
hear
the-
you. A question.
Do you recall the date that he passed?
October 15th.
Of last year?
Yes,
And do you recall that at around the same time, Mr. Leon Kennedy also had a either friend or family member pass away?
yes.
Do you recall who that was?
It was a dear friend of his.
No, you don't recall a name?
I do not.
And he was supposed to attend the funeral? Was that what was going on?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Ms. Youngblood, you said that today was the first time you've ever been deposed, is that correct?
Correct?
Okay, and you understand that you're under oath?
Yes.
And what is your understanding of what that means?
That I would tell the truth, and what my word is legally binding.
Are you under the influence of drugs or alcohol that may make it difficult for you to understand my question today?
No,
Anything that would make it difficult for you to answer my questions truthfully?
no,
Do you consume any type of drugs?
no.
Alcohol?
Occasionally,
And when was the last time you did?
about 2.5 months ago.
Okay. Are you prescribed any type of prescription drugs?
No,
Any antidepressants?
no,
Do you regularly see a psychologist or a psychiatrist?
no,
Have you ever been accused of perjury?
no,
Have you ever submitted any sort of affidavit for a legal proceeding?
For my divorces,
Okay, and how many divorces do you have?
2.
And when were those?
1989,
Was that from Mr. Youngblood?
yes,
Okay. And the second one?
and I actually don't remember the year. I think it was 2000, and that was Mr. Lorenzo. I'm not sure of that year, to be honest.
Okay.
She hasn't given instruction, but today estimates are fine. So
Okay.
even if you don't remember the exact year, if you can give your best
Counsel, I
estimate,
can't
if you had
understand, I can't understand what is he clear to you guys? I can't understand what you're saying.
I didn't get the first part of what you said. It was garbled, but then it became clear.
Okay, so just giving instruction to the client that while you may not remember exact dates, numbers,
No,
quantities.
Mr. Webb, this
even
is
people-
not, Mr. Webb, you can instruct your client not to answer. You can't give any other, this is my deposition.
Sure. Let's go off the record so I can explain to her the difference between a guess and an estimate since you didn't give her that instruction. If you'd
That's
like to
not,
go off the
no, we're not going off the record. I'm not agreeing to go off the record. And that's not a proper instruction under the federal rules, Mr. Webb. I know you don't regularly practice under the federal rules, but if you want to get them out and look at them again and review what is acceptable in a deposition, then maybe that's a good idea. But as of right now,
Okay.
you can instruct her not to answer if you are asserting a privilege. Otherwise, you can't coach the witness.
Can I finish, counsel?
Are you making an
Only one of us can
objection?
talk at a
Are you making an objection?
We're either going to go off the record and I'm going to give my client instruction about guesses and estimates, or I'll do it on the record. What do you prefer?
Whatever you talk about off the record, you know, we can talk about on the record, correct?
Then I'll do it on the record. The different guess and estimate, you won't remember everything perfectly. Just do your best today. So even though you don't have an exact, give counsel the best recollection you have. So if it's a year, a spring, a fall, approximate number, just give her the best you can, because that's what they want today. Okay, so you're doing fine.
Object to sidebar, object to coaching the witness. I'm sorry, Miss Elliott, can you read back what the question was?
Sure. The question was, and the second one? And she gave a partial answer if you want that.
That was Mr. Lorenzo, correct?
Yes,
And
2000.
Yeah, what was Mr. Lorenzo's first name, Ms. Youngblood?
Michael,
I'm sorry?
Michael,
Michael. Okay, it's a little garbled. All right, have you ever been in a lawsuit besides this one?
no,
You never had a lawsuit with Capital One in 2019?
no,
No bankruptcies?
no,
Have you ever been arrested?
yes,
And for what?
Objection. Same objection.
You may answer.
I was arrested when I was 21 for a DUI.
Same objection.
Anything else?
No,
Have you ever been fired from a job?
Objection.
I think when I was a teenager, yes.
Okay. What, for what?
No objection.
I think I wasn't showing up on time.
Okay. And what did you do to prepare for this deposition today?
I familiarized myself with my notes. I got a refreshing walk on the beach and a good night's sleep.
Okay, what notes did you refresh yourself with?
Just certain aspects of this case that has been floating around for the last couple of years.
And where are those notes kept?
In my computer.
Okay, is it a Word document?
No,
Where are they? Give me a little bit more information.
my notes are on my notepad in my computer program called Notepad.
Okay, and how long have you been keeping that notepad?
Objection vague.
I don't know, on and off,
Since
Sure.
when?
a couple of years, I guess.
And those are in regards to this case?
I keep a lot of notes.
Okay, but you specifically said that you refreshed yourself with some notes that you had over this case, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And those are, you said those have been, you've been keeping those for a couple of years, correct?
Correct.
And have you produced those notes to your attorney?
Yes.
Yeah. To the extent that they're attorney-client privileged or during this course of litigation, they're not going to be produced.
She answered the question, Mr. Webb. Don't coach the witness.
But if they're prior to litigation, sure, we'll happily produce them.
Could you repeat that, Mr. Webb? I did not get it.
Sure, to the extent that they're prior to the litigation and they're not work product or attorney-client privilege, we'll gladly produce them.
Thank you, counsel. Okay, did you talk to anybody else in preparation for this deposition today? Of course, I don't want to hear about any conversations with your attorneys.
No.
You didn't speak with your husband?
Well, they know I left, flew down to San Diego to give a deposition.
Did you review any documents?
No.
Okay, do you understand what I mean when I use the term discovery?
No.
Do you understand that in litigation, there is a process where parties gather documents and send them to each other?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I mean when I use the term discovery. So
Okay.
all the parties in this litigation have a duty to partake in discovery and produce documents that are responsive to requests from the other side. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Have you reviewed any requests from my clients for documents or information?
Yes.
And what did you do in response to those?
I uploaded a lot of things into the joint discovery box.
Okay, and what kinds of things did you upload?
Contracts, emails, Text, videos, YouTube videos, WhatsApp videos. I think that might cover it all, just by saying contracts. Well, advertising pieces.
Okay. When you were looking through emails, which email addresses did you pull emails from?
Well, mine, Youngblood@me.com. Corey Goode. I don't remember what his email is. I think it was like, I actually don't remember what his email is. I just put in Corey Goode in my search. Roger Richards. And Email Angel. GMP.production@icloud.com. That was one I used at one point. I think that's it.
Do you still have access to gmp.production@icloud.com?
I should, yeah. Do
Do you still use it?
No,
Do you recall the last time you
it's
received?
an alias. It was an, what, I'm sorry, what was that?
No, you can finish your answer, sorry.
It was an alias for my Youngblood@me.com account, so it just comes into the same email patch.
Okay, and what is your phone number?
805-844-3911.
Do you have any other phone numbers?
No,
Do you have a YouTube account?
yes,
And what's the name of that YouTube account?
Eighth House Films.
Can you spell that, please?
8, the number 8, TH, House, HOUSE, Films, FILMS.
Okay, is that a company you own?
Yes, yes,
And what kind of company is that?
a film production company.
Any other YouTube accounts?
I think of my Gmail addresses that might be associated. Talos Nation,
Could you spell that, please?
BELOSNATION.
T as in Tom,
T as in Tom.
ELOSNATION.
Correct.
Is that the name of another company?
No,
Any other YouTube accounts?
no.
Do you have any social media?
Yes.
What types of social media do you have?
Twitter.
Okay, and what's your Twitter handle?
Fool Me Twice. Full, FOOLME, the number 2, WCE.
Okay. Any other Twitter handle?
No,
Okay. What about Instagram?
I do have an Instagram account. I just don't use it. Yeah, it's Windhorse, W1NDHORSE.
Okay. Any other Instagram accounts?
No,
What about Facebook?
I have a deactivated account,
Okay. And what's the handle?
Adrienne Youngblood.
When did you deactivate it?
A couple months ago.
Okay. Approximately how much time did you spend gathering documents to upload to the discovery box that you referenced earlier?
Hundreds of hours. That's hard to quantify. It's been 2 years.
Okay, so you've been updating what you've been turning over the last 2 years?
Yes,
And everything you have, you turned over.
yes.
Did you turn over any documents from your Facebook account?
From my Facebook account, no, but to access some of the things that I took screenshots of, I needed my Facebook account. So I would say yes.
Okay, and what would those things be?
Some comments, posts that Mr. Goode made.
Okay. Do you know what a litigation hold is?
No,
So when a lawsuit is filed, the parties that are part of the lawsuit are not supposed to delete anything or destroy anything. You've never heard of that before?
Objection vague. And objection calls for attorney-client communication, but
Okay.
instruction not to answer. As phrased.
Ms. Youngblood, you said you've never heard of a litigation hold before, is that correct?
correct.
Have you destroyed any documents that would be relevant to this case since the filing of the lawsuit 2.5 years ago?
No,
You haven't deleted any emails,
no,
but you deactivated your Facebook account.
yes.
And why did you deactivate your Facebook account?
I was having some privacy issues related to another matter.
And what issues were those?
I just don't feel the need to be public.
Okay, we'll come back to that. All right, I want to talk a little bit about your background. Where are you from originally?
I was born in Seattle, Washington. My family moved to the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, when I was about 2. I was raised in Barrington Hills, Illinois.
When did you move to California?
And I was 21. That would have been 1984.
And what made you move to California?
Chicago winters.
I'm sorry?
The weather in Chicago.
Okay, well, couldn't understand what you had said before. What was it that you'd said before?
I said Chicago winters.
Oh, Chicago winters, okay. And when is your birthday, Miss Youngblood?
So we're not going to put her birthday on a public record.
This isn't a public record, council. It's designated as confidential. If she had her driver's license there and she was in Colorado, she would give us when her birthday is.
Yeah, I'm not going to put her birthday on public record,
This isn't-
nor her social.
Well, I
Yeah,
didn't ask
so
for her social. Council, what are you talking about?
I'm not going to give you either one of those because those can go straight to bank
You're not gonna
records and act.
You're not going to give me anything. Miss Youngblood can state when her birthday is. Are you instructing her not to answer when her birthday is? Which is
Correct,
publicly
yeah.
available information. Is that correct?
Really, what's my birthday? If her birthday
Yeah,
is
I'm not
publicly
answering
available
your
information,
questions, council. Are you instructing her not to answer?
if your birthday is publicly available, you can share it. If it's not, don't, because that's what can get access to your bank accounts and everything else.
All right,
So it's
council,
totally up to
you can give the instruction and that's it.
And council, just one of us at a time. I understand you're objecting, but for the court reporter's sake, wait till I'm done to
Counsel.
start talking.
Miss Youngblood, are you going to answer or not? It's an easy question.
On the advice of my attorney, I'm going to not answer.
All right, objection non-responsive. Did you move to California with your family in 1984?
Yes,
Okay. And did you attend school in California?
yes,
Where'd you go to school?
University of Santa Barbara,
What did you study there?
communication design.
Was that for your bachelor's?
It was towards a bachelor's. I didn't get a bachelor's though.
Did you go to any college before UCSB?
I think I went to Ventura College before then.
Okay, and what year was that?
It must have been about 1987 or 88.
Okay, and when were you at UCSB?
Later. 1990, maybe.
Did you go anywhere after UCSB?
Not a college. No.
Okay, so did you receive an associate's degree?
No. I received a certificate it was a special program
From UCSB?
for design and communication design.
Okay, and what is communication design?
It was basically graphic design at that time.
Any other schooling?
Lots of education. I have a lot of certificates and a lot of different things, but not from universities or colleges.
Okay, let's talk about those a little bit. Where did you study after UCSB? Those certificates?
Well, I have a certificate to teach Pilates. I have a certificate as a yoga instructor. I am an Ayurvedic practitioner.
Can you
I
spell that,
am from
please?
the Ayurvedic. I'm sorry, what?
Can you spell that, please?
Ayurvedic.
Okay,
I'm also an Ayurvedic herbalist.
okay, anything else?
I'm a certified Jyotishi, Jyotishi.
Anything else?
No,
Okay, and what's a Ayurvedic practitioner?
what is that? It is someone who has studied the Vedas and the Ayurvedic style of medicine, which is an Eastern Indian understanding of medicine, of science. It's the method of their medicine.
Okay, and then the Ayurvedic herbalist would just be another offshoot of that.
Yes, I can make formulas, prescribed formulas, herbal formulas to other people who would be my clients.
Okay, and then the final certificate that you said, I think you said Jyotishi?
Jyotishi, it's a Vedic astrology, which goes with the Ayurvedic practitioner, required to know all of the Vedas.
Okay, and I think you're saying the word Vedas or Betas?
Veda, V as in Victor, E-D-A-S, Vedas.
And what are those?
It's the understanding of Eastern religion, Hindu, Buddhism, thousands of years old.
Okay, and your certificate to teach Pilates, when did you receive that?
Oh, wow. Wow, that was so long ago. 2005, maybe?
Okay. And if you can remember when you got your yoga certificate or certificate to teach yoga.
Yeah, that was before, so that would have been in 99-ish. 99-ish, maybe
And-
even earlier.
Okay, thanks. And the Ayurvedic practitioner and herbalist certificates, you recall?
That was about 2008, 2009. It was a long program. I think it was about 2009 when I was complete. Actually, it may have been 2010 when I was complete. This isn't something I was prepared to know.
Mhm. And you said that was a long program.
Remember?
How long did that take you to get that certificate?
Couple years.
A couple
Couple years.
Couple years. Okay, and the Joy Atishi was at the same, did you have that at the same time?
No, that was I completed that in about 2011.
Okay. Did you ever live in Los Angeles?
No,
Okay. Any other licenses or special training?
well, special training. I've had an awful lot of web design, graphic design, marketing. I've done a lot of marketing, seminars, workshops, things like that. Like I said, nothing formal on that end.
Would you
I keep myself educated when I'm interested in something. I do a lot of workshops.
Would you consider yourself an expert in any of those areas?
Objection vague. Yes.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't consider myself an expert.
Okay. Earlier we spoke about a business. I believe you had a YouTube channel connected to it, the Eighth House Films, the film production company. When did you, is that a company you owned?
Yeah, that is doing a DBA that is attached to Full Disclosure Collaborative.
Okay, and when did you start the DBA Eighth House Productions?
Can you restate that?
Sure, so,
I just didn't.
well, let's back up. Let's go to Full Disclosure Collaborative. When did you start Full Disclosure Collaborative?
April 2019.
And did Eighth House Productions come after that?
Yeah,
And when was that started?
Eighth House,
Yes.
January 2022, January 2022.
Okay. And what type of, do you know what type of entity Full Disclosure Collaborative is?
It's an LLC,
Is it active?
yes.
And what was Eighth House Productions started? Was there a particular project that was started for?
Yes, I created a film,
And what's the name of that film?
Trance, Kathy O'Brien's story.
I'm sorry, the first word I couldn't understand. Did you say trance?
Got
Got
Trance, T-R-A-N-E, trance.
Okay. Any other companies that you've started up besides Eighth House Productions and Full Disclosure Collaborative?
Youngblood Studios
I'm
was a
sorry.
marketing and design. Youngblood Studios.
Okay. The connection's really bad. And that was a what type of company?
Marketing and graphic design.
And when did you start that?
I was 25, so I don't know what that would have made me 25. So about 1985. Wait, that's probably not right. Hang on. I was born in 86. So about 1990.
Okay. And is that still an active company?
No,
Was that a DBA or an LLC or?
it was a sole proprietorship.
Any other companies besides those three?
That I started, no.
Okay. What do you do for a living right now, Ms. Youngblood?
I am a filmmaker.
And how many films have you made?
I have produced 4 movies.
Okay, and you mentioned Trance, and that came out this year, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and what was the next most recent movie?
The Observers,
Okay, when did that come out?
2021.
Okay. And the next most recent?
Deep Rig, 2020. And 1,000 Pieces, 2021. 2020.
Okay, and you said Deep Rig? Was that the third one?
Deep Rig,
Okay. What was Deep Rig about?
Election integrity.
Okay. And 1,000 Pieces?
Corrupt government factions.
Okay, and The Observers?
UAPs.
What is that?
UAPs,
What's that?
Identified Aerial Phenomena.
UAPs, okay. And Trance, what was that about?
Mind Control and Kaltra. It was the Kathy O'Brien story.
It's about satanic ritual abuse.
No,
Okay, besides being a filmmaker, have you done anything else prior to making films?
Certainly, prior to making films, I was creating conferences.
Okay, and what conferences did you create?
Dimensions of Disclosure 2019,
Any others?
Dimensions of Disclosure 2018, Eclipse of Disclosure 2017, I also held several small events.
And when were those?
One Voice Now was in, actually, I could even go back further. I coordinated a 1,400-mile horseback ride from Fort Reno, Oklahoma to Lame Deer, Montana, on the request of an elder grandmother in the 13 Indigenous Grandmother Organization. I coordinated
When was that?
2012.
Okay,
I coordinated that. I was navigator on that. I rode that ride, both on my horse on that, and we rode those 1,400 miles in about 3 months. That ended at the event that was created, which was a gathering of the 13 Indigenous grandmothers in Lame Deer, Montana. Oh, I forgot about another certificate. I'm also a certified equine assisted therapist.
okay, when did you get that certificate?
2015.
Okay. Okay, any other events, since the 2012 1,400 mile?
I think I mentioned One Voice Now, which was an event that we did in 2016.
Okay, and what was that?
It was an event in our town. We organized to bring awareness to a measure that was being passed by the Board of Supervisors in our town.
What town is that?
Nevada City, California.
Okay, and what was the measure that was being passed?
Measure W, which was to give across the board certain permissions to anyone who owns land, to the landowners. I actually don't remember a lot about that, the details of that measure, other than a lot of the new laws that they wanted to pass, things like, tapping our wells, metering our wells and things like that.
So was this in support of the measures or against the measures?
We were against the measure. Most people were farmers, ranchers, anyone who owned land, basically, who was on a well.
Okay, any other events?
I could go, how far back do you want me to go? I started events when I was 17. So I don't know how far you want to go back.
How big was the One Voice Now event? How many people?
I'd say it was maybe 1,000 people.
And was that the biggest event that you had prior to Eclipse of Disclosure?
When I was, like I said, I was 18. My first position was as a professional position was as a promotion director for a mall, Belvedere Mall in Waukegan, Illinois. And I was in charge of all of the promotions and marketing of that mall. And my first event was a 10K marathon sponsored by Budweiser through the streets of Waukegan.
Okay, and how many people approximately went to that 10K?
Thousands. Waukegan is not a small city.
Okay, and you didn't work with anybody else on that 10K?
I worked with a small committee of people. I didn't do it entirely on my own. Nobody does any event entirely on their own.
But you would say that you were the person that was that was responsible for the thousands of people showing up to that 10K?
Through the Merchants Association that employed me, yes.
Okay. Any other events besides the
Well,
10K?
that was one of the larger ones. I went on and did several events at that mall, which was part of the job, was, you know, an event every other week. So there were big events, there were small events.
Okay. And then you moved from Illinois out to California, and that's when you started going to school, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Did you produce any sort of events while you were at UCSB?
no.
What about Ventura College?
No, I've worked full-time when I was going to school, as well as raising my children.
And that was as a graphic designer?
I was a marketing director for a hotel management company. So I was placed in different hotels. I started at one hotel in Oxnard, California, the Radisson, as a marketing / DJ for the bar there, so in the food and beverage. So I was in charge of the promotions and the marketing, as well as being the DJ for that club. And then I was moved to a bigger club in Simi Valley, and I was the marketing director for that club. I was a fill-in DJ, but that was a very high energy nightclub, and I did the marketing much better than screaming into a mic. And so I had those jobs while I was going to UCSB to learn more about graphic design, which was via computer, and it was just kind of the renaissance of that time. So I was educating myself on that with the intention of leaving this reality marketing job so that I could start my own business, since I was a single mother and driving from Simi Valley to Santa Barbara at night, get this education after I worked all day, and I wanted to be with my children. So that was what I did when I worked, when I went to school. I also did occasionally work as a cocktail server and a bartender. I did what I needed to do to make ends meet. When I owned Youngblood Studio, I did marketing, business consulting, and technology consulting, because now I had a knowledge that a lot of people and businesses didn't.
Okay.
I then eventually moved home and started my business, Youngblood Studio, out of my house. And all of those clients, all of the places that I worked within that hotel management company became my clients, because they really liked my work and they knew I knew what I was doing.
Okay, and where was
I was
home?
an easy
Sorry.
Oxnard.
Oxnard.
I need
Oxnard.
you to, I need the answer repeated. It was garbled.
I lived in Oxnard at that time.
And when you moved back to Oxnard, were you moving back home with your parents, or was that so?
I've never lived with my parents in my adult life.
So you had a home in Oxnard, but you were living down in UCSB and Simi Valley to go to school?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is Oxnard, is that the same place where you're living right now?
No,
Okay. Do you still own that place in Oxnard?
no, I never owned it.
What made it home?
Objection. No questions that go to financial discovery. That's not the purpose of this deposition.
What?
Just a question for you to know. We're not going into your finances, bank accounts, what you own or don't own. It's improper.
That,
So
okay,
she asked you
that, this is my deposition, Mr. Webb, and we're gonna talk about whatever I want to talk about at my deposition. If you want to move for protective order on something that's relevant to the litigation, what did I say anything about finances?
Counsel, when I'm talking, please don't interrupt me for the sake of the court reporter once again. But I'm instructing my client not to answer as far as any sort of current financial conditions. So you can proceed with your next question.
Okay, well, that's, that wasn't what we were talking about.
Good.
So. And I would appreciate you stop with the speaking objections, counsel. It's not appropriate. Okay, so when you're talking about going home to Oxnard, what makes Oxnard home?
It doesn't. I don't know what you're referring to if I said going home to Oxnard. I had a home in Oxnard that I rented for a great deal of my kids' early lives.
Okay. When did you move to Nevada City?
2007.
Council, can we go off the record and put in a sandwich order?
I'm sorry?
Can we go off the record for a second? My client's putting in a sandwich order, or just pause for 30 seconds and she'll circle something.
It is really hard to understand what you're saying, counsel. I have no idea what you're saying.
Thank you. We're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're on the second floor above them. Our entrance is on Kiowa.
Who's talking?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, counsel, what's going on? Was there somebody that's talking?
Nope, nobody in our conference room.
You can bring it in, we can take a look at it.
Who's talking right now?
I think it's someone in my hallway.
Okay.
It's the background. Sometimes I'll mute. It's,
Oh, no, it's okay. I was a little confused. It's hard to understand what people are saying.
it's garbled because it's in the hallway.
Okay, no, it's fine. Okay, so you moved to Nevada City in 2007, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any other businesses that you run out of your Nevada City address? Besides your filmmaking and your event planning companies?
No, I do not have any businesses that I run. No,
You don't do any sort of farming on your land?
I grow my own food.
Okay, do you sell that?
No,
Okay,
but you asked about farming. That's,
right,
we
okay,
consider farming.
okay. Do you know what ayahuasca is?
Yes, I do.
And what is ayahuasca?
Is a vine and something else combined to create a hallucinogenic reality.
Have you ever done ayahuasca before?
Yes,
And have you ever hosted a gathering of people in order to do ayahuasca?
yes.
And when was that?
When was that? Two 2017.
Was that on your
I think
land?
it was 2000. I think it was 2017. Yes.
And how many people attended that?
6.
Was that the only time you hosted?
No, there was more there. There was more than there. I think there was more like 10 there.
Okay, and
It was private. That wasn't something that was not a business. That was a private invitation.
was that the only time you've ever hosted something like that on your land?
Yeah.
Have you ever grown marijuana on your land?
Yes,
And when was that?
probably got interested in that in about 2010, maybe 2009. Yeah.
And did you get any sort of licenses to grow marijuana on your land?
No, we only grew what was legally acceptable for recreational or medicinal use. At first, it was for medicinal use. And then when it became legal to grow recreational plants, we grew what was the legal limit for those recreational plants.
And when did it become legal?
Objection vague. You can answer.
I don't know when California, I don't remember when California made it legal, but there's always been some kind of stipulation as far as you can grow 6 plants with a medical, or you can grow 12 plants in a section. We've always just followed those, whatever was mandated for our county, we just followed those mandates. And it changed every year. So it was, we just kept up with it.
Okay, and when you say we, who do you mean by we?
That was largely my husband's thing. He had a Japanese maple tree farm in Oregon, and he's kind of innately a green thumb.
Okay, and so he kept up with the changing law on a yearly basis?
Objection foundation. You can answer.
Yes.
How often did you and your husband talk about the laws as they pertain to marijuana?
Objection spousal marital privilege. Instruction not to answer. Next question.
Are you gonna not answer? Ms. Youngblood?
And on the advice of my attorney, I'm not going to answer.
Objection, non-responsive. Have you ever grown hemp on your property?
Yes,
And when did you grow hemp on your property?
2009, January 2019.
And are you still growing hemp on your property?
No, ma'am.
Are you still growing marijuana on your property?
No.
When did you stop growing hemp on your property?
May 2019.
And what happened with the hemp that was being grown on your property?
Objection vague.
It was destroyed.
And who destroyed it?
But then my husband and our farm workers.
And how many plants were destroyed?
700.
About how long did it take to destroy 700 plants?
A long time. Well, they self-destructed, so it actually didn't take as long as you might think.
What do you mean by self-destructed?
Plants that we had became diseased ultimately, and they were dying on their own.
Was this, when was it that they became diseased?
I believe they started noticing the mold and growth the beginning of April, that it started to become an obvious larger problem.
Had you ever had an issue with mold growing on any other plants that you grew on your property?
Mold is a common occurrence
Objection.
for,
You can continue, sorry.
I didn't hear what you said.
You can continue.
Okay. Yes, mold happens. That was a particularly wet winter. So mold happens a little bit more in a wet season.
And had that happened to any other
But-
crops? Sorry, go ahead.
No, no. Not long term, no.
So the mold that destroyed the hemp plants on your property just happened to coincide with the fact that it was illegal to grow hemp at that point in time?
Yep, we were given after we planted all the plants, did all of the earth moving and brought in all the soil, brought in all the plants, lots of labor, lots of construction. We then, the very first ding that project got was that the Nevada County issued an emergency ban on growing hemp in our county. And at the time, there was a lot of talk within our board of supervisors. This is an emergency ban, and it was kind of unclear as to how long that emergency ban would be put into place. We went to the meetings and, staying on top of what the decision was going to be, but we did decide that we wouldn't just automatically destroy what was growing yet, because we weren't sure what was happening, and there was an investment made into that project. But as soon as we got the ban, as soon as we knew there was a ban of growing hemp, we stopped receiving any more investment into the project, and we took on the rest of the project on our own at that time. And so, yes, like I said, it was a extremely wet winter, and I'm sure, and there's a video that was made to show Mr. Goode the progress we were making, that actually just was on the tail end of us being legal and growing. It hadn't happened yet, and that was in, I think, it was on his anniversary, mid-March, something like that. And it was raining then, and in that video, and you could even see at one point where my husband is pointing out to one of our workers something they saw on a plant, and I as the filmer, I noticed that and then moved on. But that was the beginning of noticing that there was something that needed some really strong attention. And so we went in that direction, and we waited it out. We were playing a game of okay, what's going to happen with this legally? At this point, legally, we didn't have a product to offer that would have been legal. And now we were into it, and now the plants were starting to show signs of this disease, which does have a name that I can't remember right now, but anyway. And yeah, we put a lot of labor into trying to save those plants simply because we weren't ready to let it go, and it did not get better.
So although the emergency ban was in place, you weren't ready to let it go. How long did you guys let it exist before you just destroyed it?
Oh, it was probably 2 months by the time it was clear. So by like the end of May, I think the moratorium was presented in April, and we went through May, and I think it may even have been June when we just realized that we were just pouring in our good money and hard work after bad. It was just a lot of work to keep that on top of that. It was mostly labor because we had work traders at our place, and rather than doing the work that they were there to trade for, we had them working on these plants, and it was just getting a little overwhelming for our ranch, and to be giving all this attention to something that was clearly not going to resurrect itself. And by this time, we pretty much knew that the ban was not going to be lifted. We had attended the Board of Supervisor meetings, and it was pretty clear that they were going to hold this strong and true. Even the legal cannabis growers did not want hemp growing to be legalized. So it was a kind of a losing battle there. And I actually don't even know what the status is now on hemp growing in Nevada County. That was just a done deal. That project just was rather disheartening the most to my husband.
Were you not worried that it would be found out that you still had illegal hemp plants on your land after a ban was in place?
Objection, assumes facts, argumentative. You can answer.
We weren't worried because we knew that these plants, that the repercussion of growing these plants was that we would get a 3-day visit. And what that is basically you have, if there's a suspicion that you might be having something illegal, the sheriff comes to your property and then says, oh, you're growing something illegal, you have 3 days to destroy your crop. So we knew that we would have that kind of leeway And in the meantime, while the Board of Supervisors was trying to work it out as far as, is this going to be legalized or is it not going to be legalized, at least that way we knew that we wouldn't destroy those plants and that investment prematurely. We would have then, you know, had that, like I said, that 3-day window of, you know, this is not okay anymore. And then we would have been able to destroy them within those 3 days. But that never happened. We were never visited. And as I said, the plants were ultimately destroyed anyway.
Okay, so you guys never received a visit from a sheriff?
No.
You never received notice that one would be visiting for a 3-day visit?
Never.
Make sure to wait till she finishes before you give your answer.
Earlier you mentioned farm workers and work traders. Are those the same thing?
Yeah.
And what's a work trader?
Someone who needs a place to live and work, as far as like taking care of the horses and birds. We have a lot of birds, peacocks, chickens, cats, dogs, goats, horses. It's a lot of work. We have a lot of food gardens. And so we have people who might come and live on the property for a while, and in exchange for living there, they pitch in and we usually have an agreement, like 10 hours of work a week or something like that, depending on what's needed there at the ranch. And that is what a work trader is. We offer them a place to live in exchange for them helping with the land.
Okay, and in that video that you referenced earlier, do you recall there were a few individuals that were on, like in the video that were working with the plants? Were those 2 individuals work traders?
Yes.
Okay, and do they still live there?
No.
Okay, and what were their names?
Devin Cremitas, Alexis, I don't know Alexis's last name, and Jace, starts with a K. I just always know them as Alexis and Jace. They're a couple.
Okay, and those 3 people don't live there anymore, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Wahlberg and Ms. Collins, are those both work traders?
Mr. Wahlberg is.
And did Mr. Wahlberg have any sort of involvement with the hemp crop?
No.
Earlier, you mentioned that when the emergency ban went into effect, you took on the rest of the project on our own. What do you mean by that?
This was all part of an investment that was going to be made. This is all part of a long-term plan project to create CBD products, eventually create THC products once we got our manufacturing and distribution license. And that was part of the plan to go into business to create these products. And that was with the SBA group that was investing into the project. And they had invested $45,000 on the initial setup based on the performance and the numbers provided. And that was supposed to be infused on a monthly basis based on nutrition, the nutrients for the plants, climate control, laborers, should we need to actually hire laborers, but, those types of things. So that was the initial investment, one greenhouse that was erected. And so that was the initial investment. And then once we realized that this was so precarious, we stopped taking any funding and said that we would just see the plants through ourselves, because at this time we didn't want to take any more money for something that may or may not be a viable product.
So the $45,000 investment by SBA Group, was that the only outside money that was put into this hemp project?
Other than the ranch money,
Yes.
our money, our personal money, no. No, there was another, Jordan Sather came on late. That's what I'm thinking here, and I believe he contributed in the beginning as well.
And how much did?
But he was.
Sorry, go ahead.
It was $15,000. It was $15,000.
Okay. And how much did you and your husband put in out of your own money into the hemp project?
Difficult to value since a lot of it was labor. Well, we, cash-wise, it was probably close to $8,000 to $10,000, but again, most of what we put into that was the labor and the time and the land and the loss of what we could have been doing with that land.
And that was from the period of January 2019 to June of 2019, is that correct?
Yeah.
And what is being done? Well, let me back up. About what area of land, how big of a piece of land was to be utilized for the hemp project?
I would say it was about 8 acres. I'm not very good on estimating land, but we have 40 acres and it was a section of the property.
And after the hemp was destroyed, what's been done with that 8 acres, or roughly 8 acres?
We've had people living down there. We currently have a food production going on in our small greenhouse. We're using some for storage. Storage is definitely a hot commodity on our property. We'll probably be using that area for hay storage this year. We use it for different things. There's really no designated anything there except for the food gardens.
So one of the greenhouses that was built for the hemp project is now being used for small food production, is that correct?
No, that one's being used to store hay, more of a storage place. It's not fully functional as a greenhouse.
And how many greenhouses were built?
For this project, one greenhouse was built. The other pad was cut. The intention was to build 2 greenhouses, and we had an existing greenhouse already. That one was only 60 feet long. The existing greenhouse was 60 feet long. The new ones were to be 100 feet long. And so we were able to erect one of those, and the pad was cut for the second one, but we needed to build a retaining wall before we could actually put up the second greenhouse, which was going to take another round after we cut the clones. That was basically the plan, is you cut clones from an existing crop and then you have more to continue on production. And so that second greenhouse, we needed to build a retaining wall before we could put the second greenhouse up. But because it was so wet and rainy, we couldn't build the retaining wall. And that turned out to be fortunate because, as it turns out, we didn't need that second greenhouse after all.
Okay. What was that area, the approximately 8 acres, being used for prior to it being used for the hemp project?
That is where we had our personal grow. We had our personal cannabis plants there in our smaller greenhouse. We also, again, it's storage. There's something that we call the pole barn, and the pole barn is in that location. And so we use that pole barn for storage. We've had a person living in it. It has a really great roof on it. We've had an RV under it. You know, our property is really very versatile. So whatever, you know, whatever we need, whenever we're moving things around, that's one of the places that, because there's a structure there, the pole barn, that's always one of the places things end up.
And did the pole barn have to be torn down for the hemp project?
No?
It's still there?
Yes.
Okay. So the hemp product that was destroyed, none of that was able to be sold off or anything?
No, we couldn't have sold it anyway.
So the entirety of the 700 plants were all completely molded and destroyed?
Yes. We had a small batch of, you know, just to throw in, we did have a small batch that we tried, that we thought, well, let's just see what this does. And we did trim it. But unfortunately, the problem with mold is that it sneaks inside of those buds. So even anything that we had that we, you know, this was an experiment for us as well. We didn't grow hemp. And it was also an experiment for Nevada County, because it wasn't legal to grow hemp. And then it became legal to grow hemp. And so there were other people that were interested in what was happening to our plants. The experts that are called in for certain things, cannabis or hemp related, are very, very hard to find. And so when there is some kind of irregularity and you reach out to where you know to go, the grow stores, other people in our community that are very active in obtaining medicine for kids with epilepsy, which this particular crop that we were growing had a lot of interest by an organization that created medicine for children because this was Charlotte's Web, which is a very popular strain for medicine for children with epilepsy. And so we did have eyes on us and a lot of help that during the process, there was just, you know, everyone was interested in it because, like I said, there really are no experts other than people who have done it over and over and over again. And as I said, this was something new for Nevada County. So we did have a small, I would say ultimately maybe 4 pounds of product, or bud and plant. And we wanted to see what would happen if we just took what we could see and clean it up and see what it looked like. But there was mold everywhere. You couldn't inside, so you couldn't. There was nothing that could have been done with that hemp. You couldn't have made oil. You couldn't have done anything. And bottom line is, it wasn't legal to do so.
Okay, did you know anybody else that was growing hemp in your area?
Not in my area.
Do you know anybody else anywhere else that was growing hemp?
Yes, Washington area.
Washington State?
Yes.
Okay. And did they have the same sort of issue with the mold?
No, this was Washington State. They have an entirely different setup, and they've been growing it. It's been legal in Washington for a long time. Might have been Oregon. Wherever it's been legal for a long time. Oregon, yeah, Oregon.
Okay, but Oregon's a rainier state than California, correct?
Okay.
And you had never heard of anybody else having this mold issue before?
I had never heard of anyone having this particular issue, no.
Have you since?
I'm sorry, did you say that again?
Have you since?
Have I since? Not on hemp. I really wasn't, my attention isn't really in growing anything other than zucchinis and tomatoes. And as I said, even that project, I was pretty consumed with another project during that time. But the hemp, that was something that came and went as far as our experience and dabbling in the hemp reality. And as I said, people weren't growing hemp. It became illegal to grow hemp. It was more legal to grow cannabis than it was to grow hemp.
Okay, and you mentioned that that experts were hard to find. Did you guys try to find an expert to look at the hemp plants?
Well, yes, whenever there's an issue that happens with any farming issue, you want to reach out to the people that know what's going on so you can find out if they've had the same experiences and if they have any direction that they want to offer. That's something that happens whether you're growing hay or tomatoes or any farming reality, chickens for that matter. Yeah, you reach out to the people who have experience so that you can try those things.
And where did you look to find an expert?
Amongst people that we knew, the people in Oregon, now that I'm remembering that it probably was Oregon, it was a very exciting time in California when hemp became legal. So there was a lot of communication with organizations that you could gather, communicate with at certain grow stores, that the stores that had, supplied nutrients and all the products. That's usually where the hub of information is for any agricultural endeavor, is where people buy the things to improve their crops.
Okay, and I think you mentioned that your husband had been growing crops for quite a while. Is that correct?
I mentioned that he had a Japanese maple tree farm in Oregon before we met.
And what is that his trade, or is that just something he inherited, or?
No, he lived there, and no, he is a well, he's a man of all trades. I guess I don't have to answer that.
So he's not a botanist by trade.
No, he is not a botanist.
And what is his involvement with the Japanese tree garden that he owns in Oregon?
He does not own a Japanese tree farm in Oregon anymore. He owned a Japanese maple tree farm in Oregon before I met him. He supplied Japanese maple trees to other nurseries. That is the extent of what I know about that experience for him.
Do you know approximately how long he did that for?
I do not.
Okay, and you mentioned that the hemp project was an experiment. What do you mean by that?
No one had grown hemp. Hemp was not legal to grow in California. So anyone who was planting hemp for the first time in California, had it been newly legalized, was not necessarily a pro at growing it, since this was the first time anyone would be doing that legally in our area. So that's what I would have meant by experiment, because it was the first time that a great many people would have been planting hemp and growing it legally in Nevada County.
So whose idea was it to come up with the hemp project?
I think it was, I really don't know. I don't know where the idea originated. We were talking about within the SBA communications, Roger Richards, Corey Goode, Leon Kennedy was involved in those conversations at the end of December 2018. That was about growing THC products. That was about, cosmic cannabis, to develop a line of THC products. And for that, we were going to need to get our license, our manufacturing license, and our distribution license for the THC. And that's what we first started talking about and communicating with each other about doing that. And then when hemp was legalized, the opportunity to grow hemp came immediately. And that's when we said, hey, well, let's start with the CBD products first. And while we were waiting to get the manufacturing and distribution licenses for THC, we would grow the hemp.
Okay, and when you were discussing making the move from growing the THC-based plants to the hemp plants, did you let the SBA group know that this was going to be a new endeavor that you had never tried before?
Of course, they were with every, yes,
And did you keep them on top of, did you give them updates about,
yes.
who did you give updates to?
Roger, Leon, Corey as a group, Roger as an individual, Corey, Goode as an individual. I think that's it.
And how often were these updates given?
Whenever something happened or whenever someone asked something, I was in communication, open door communication with any of them.
How soon after finding out that there was going to be the emergency ban on hemp, did you let the SBA group know that there was going to be an issue?
I would say almost immediately, as soon as we got the actual paperwork and read the moratorium.
Okay, and when did you receive that paperwork?
Must have been April 2019, whenever it was done, because we picked it up at the board meetings.
Okay, so you received the paperwork at a board meeting?
We may have gotten it there. To be honest with you, it was circulating everywhere. So where it originally came from, the actual piece of paper that I read it from, it may have even come in a posting in the Union, which was a newspaper. I mean, it was kind of circulating around. I don't remember the origin of when I first saw the actual documented moratorium.
Did you have knowledge of it before it was actually passed?
No,
Okay. And when you referenced a board meeting earlier, which board meeting were you referencing?
there's the Board of Supervisor meetings that are open to people in communities. They held them once a week.
And this was for Nevada City or a different,
Nevada,
I'm sorry,
Nevada County.
Nevada County, okay. Okay. I want to turn now to your work as a documentary producer. We spoke earlier about 4 different documentaries that that you are a producer on. Are you the sole producer on those documentaries?
No,
Are you the sole producer on any of those documentaries?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I'll start with, I don't know which, it looks like the Deep Rig and 1,000 Pieces were both from 2020, is that correct?
Yes.
About how many producers did you work with on those projects? We'll start with Deep Rig.
The Deep Rig, I was an associate producer. I think I worked with 2 other producers on the Deep Rig.
Okay, and how big was that film? Do you?
Define big.
Not big?
No, I said define big.
How much revenue did it bring in?
I don't know.
Do you have an idea of how many, how big of an audience it reached?
Are we talking about the film associated with Corey Goode or one that you independently did?
Independent.
Yeah, I don't want to go into finances of other people's finances, just so you're aware.
This is a discovery deposition, Mr. Webb. If you want to move for a protective order, that's fine.
Ask your question. Go ahead.
Can you restate the question?
Yes. Do you have an idea of how big of an audience the deep rig reached?
I do not. I was for hire on that project.
I missed what you said, Mr. Webb. I'm sorry.
Objection, that's fine.
What do you mean by for hire?
I didn't pay attention to anything other than my job that I was hired to do as an associate producer. And I also organized the event, which was the premiere of that movie that I organized live. So that was what I was hired to do for the deep rig. Everything else that is involved with the deep rig, I have no knowledge of.
Okay, how about 1,000 pieces? How many other producers were on that project?
It may have, the reason I'm not sure is because I'm not really sure if Steve Lachewski has a producer credit on that movie or not. But if he does, then it would have been Steve and myself as producers on that particular film.
Okay, so when you're talking about a producer credit, is that how you would differentiate between being for hire? If you had a credit, producer credit, then you
No.
would, okay.
No, I had an associate producer credit on Deep Rig. I have a producer credit on 1,000 Pieces.
Okay, and do you have an idea of how much revenue that documentary brought in?
No,
Do you have an idea of the audience that reached?
hard to know. No. That's one I could find out though.
How was the Deep Rig distributed?
Through a website.
Was it picked up by Amazon?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, so just through its own website, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how about 1,000 Pieces? Was it the same thing?
That is through its own website, yes.
Okay. Okay, how about The Observers?
That is,
Were you the sole producer on that project?
I was a producer on that project, yes.
With how many other producers?
Or others, maybe more.
And do you have an idea of how much revenue that documentary brought in?
Not a clue.
The number of people that it reached, no idea either. And how was that film distributed?
That's through the Orchard 1091, which is now chicken soup or something like that.
Did you have any contact with Mr. Martin when you, with 1091, when you were working on the observers?
No,
Okay, and how about trance? Are you the, how many other producers were on that documentary?
Two.
And do you have any idea how much revenue that documentary brought in?
has not made a profit.
And how do you know that?
Because I am in charge of that one.
Do you have an idea of how big of an audience that it reached?
No. It reached a lot on the black market.
What do you mean by
I
that?
don't want to go into,
It was pirated. It's all over the place. People can see it for free.
Did you have any role in promoting any of those 4 documentaries?
I have a role in promoting trance.
Okay, and what does that entail?
Posting things on social media, getting interviews with and for Kathy O'Brien, licensing the movie should that be offered. That's pretty much it.
And when you post on social media and when you're promoting trans, do you post as Adrienne Youngblood, or do you just post as somebody that's, you know, it's just being posted by trans or whoever the marketing?
It's being posted by Trance, the movie.
So in those promotions, it wouldn't have your name connected to it at all?
Correct.
Okay, I want to turn to the documentaries Above Majestic and Cosmic Secret. Are you claiming any sort of producer's rights to either one of those?
No. I'm happy to be a thank you at the end of the film, like I am right now.
Do you think that you should have received anything more than what you've received right now?
No.
And what was your role, if any, in producing Above Majestic?
I didn't produce Above Majestic, but I certainly served as a producer here and there. But I was not a producer.
And what about Cosmic Secret?
I was not a producer on Cosmic Secret.
Okay, do you know of a YouTube channel called Post Orthodoxy?
Yes,
And who are they?
they are influencers.
And have you ever been interviewed by Post Orthodoxy?
Yes.
When was that?
Must have been March 2022. I know we talked about trance, so it was within the maybe first quarter of 2022.
Were you ever interviewed by any other influencers besides post-orthodoxy for trans?
Yes. I was interviewed by Mel K on the Mel K show with Kathy O'Brien. I was interviewed by Laura Eisenhower on her show with Kathy O'Brien. I had one other interview. I honestly don't remember her name. It was also with Kathy O'Brien. It was incidental, so I don't remember her name. I think that's it.
And do you know how many viewers these interviews reached?
Post-orthodoxy probably reached about 10 viewers, maybe 15. Mel K has a substantial reach. I don't know though. I don't pay attention to those things. I don't pay attention to those numbers. I guess I should. I'm gonna guess that she has a reach of, you know, probably that interview, maybe 25,000 people saw it, maybe.
What about Cosmic Redemption? Do you know who that is?
Cosmic Re. I don't know who. Oh, that's right. I was interviewed. I was interviewed by Matthew Mornian. I totally forgot about that. How could I forget that? Yeah, I was, and I think Matthew Mornian is Cosmic Redemption, if I'm not mistaken.
And do you know how many viewers that interview reached?
2,700.
And why can you recall that viewer count so much faster than any of these other
Because-
viewers count?
Because I looked it up and took a screenshot of it and put it in as an exhibit for this case, as I did with all of the interviews that Matthew Mornian did on that accountability project. Mine was the least viewed. So I remember.
Okay. Have you ever presented at any conferences?
No. Not as my own platform, no.
What do you mean by that?
I am not an influencer or a speaker, but I have been on stage with a microphone at conferences that I've done.
Okay, and which can you give me the names of those?
DOD 2019.
Any others?
No.
Okay. And how many attendees were there at DOD 2019?
Roughly 700.
That was in person, correct?
Correct.
And how many people attended through the live stream?
We had a count of about 2,000.
But that was a sold out event, correct?
Technically, no. That was a marketing thing that I did. It was not sold out. I announced that it was sold out because we were running low on seats. I didn't want to crowd everything, and I knew that we had a live stream going, and I wanted to be able to start selling those live stream tickets. So I announced that it was sold out, but I was actually accepting more when people would write, oh, please, 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 I need a ticket. I anticipated that. So I continued to get the final stragglers, and but we never really sold out. Like I said, that was a marketing thing that I did at the end as we got closer to the day of the event so that I could start selling the live stream tickets.
Okay, is that a marketing tactic that you use a lot to say some things?
I have definitely used the understanding that something is sold out when it isn't, because it's actually a safety measure when you are getting towards the capacity of a room. And as you start selling seats, you can't, if you overbook, then you're in trouble. So as we were getting towards the capacity of the room, I announced it sold out. Because also, remember, you've got speakers who want you to add people at the last minute as their personal guests, which is something Mr. Goode did quite often. Specifically, Mr. Goode.
So there's what you wouldn't build in a buffer as somebody that plans events for
Yeah.
quite a while.
You need a buffer. You need a buffer.
Is the buffer making a false statement, like saying it's sold out when it's not?
It's yeah, sure. For all intents and purposes, it was sold out because I wasn't selling any more seats.
But you were still giving away tickets.
For those people that really needed a ticket, yes.
What is your understanding of the phrase entertainment industry?
I would say my understanding of the term entertainment industry is, wow, it's a huge industry. I guess media creation.
Okay, how about like movies and documentaries? Would you include
Section
those
called
in entertainment?
My definition, no.
You would not include movies and documentaries in the term entertainment
In the,
industry?
in the entertainment industry, no. I certainly not the documentaries that I'm involved in. No.
Okay. What category would you put documentaries into?
I would say information.
Okay, what about interviews?
What about interview?
Uh-huh.
What's the question?
Would you include interviews as something that would be part of the entertainment industry?
That depends on the interview.
Okay, can you explain?
Well, if the interview is meant to be entertaining, then that would be an entertainment interview. But if an interview is a factual interview around gathering facts and research and knowledge, that is an interview more like a newscast. So there's a differentiation in my mind between the news and facts and entertainment and fiction.
So it would be the difference between something broadcast to the public for entertainment versus something broadcast to the public for information. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself as part of the information industry?
For the sake of answering your question, yes, but I actually don't consider myself a part of any one industry.
Okay, where would you place yourself?
Where would I place what?
Would you place yourself in both the entertainment and in the informational industry?
No.
Okay, where would you consider yourself?
I don't consider myself a part of any industry.
Okay,
I'm a freelance producer.
a freelance producer of documentaries, correct?
A freelance producer of anything. I produce conferences, I produce documentaries, I produce Chinese chicken salad. I am a producer.
Hungry?
Okay. I want to talk about your involvement now with your counter defendants. When was it that you met Roger Richards?
I met Roger Richards after I volunteered my marketing services to Full Disclosure Project through an online application. As the Full Disclosure Project was doing a reach out for volunteers, as I understood it, they were moving towards, it was an activist group moving towards having free energy, the patents, the 5,000 patents for free energy that have been sealed. Those were going, that Full Disclosure Project was aiming at having those patents unsealed, which was extremely something near to my heart of activism. And that's why I threw out my volunteer of my professional skill to this organization. And I received a phone call from Roger Richards after I did that on February 27th, 2017. And we had a long conversation, and he invited me into the Slack think tank group that was involved in creating these activist conversations and how we were going to move forward with this activism.
Okay, you mentioned that that the disclosure of the free energy patent was something that was near and dear to your heart. What, can you explain that?
Well, my understanding that there are a lot of things that have been sealed from not only the American public, but the world, that could advance humanity in general is something that I would like to see move quickly so that my grandchildren have a better reality than I did, as well as the entire world. So something like free energy is something that if it were released to the entire world, the whole world would change within 5 years completely. And we're talking about third world countries. We're talking about children who currently don't have water, who don't have food, who can't grow gardens, whose only way of even surviving is being sold by their fathers into slavitude. Free energy would change all of that for humanity almost instantly. So that is something that I would actually put my heart and soul behind to try to instigate that kind of movement, that kind of reality, that kind of thing for our country and also for the world.
Okay, and what happened with that project?
Well, it was always something that was going to happen once I joined that group. It was always on the movement table, if you will, to do an event on 11/11 in Washington, D.C. We eventually did do that under a different guise. And by the time that happened, I was definitely on my way out of that particular group. But that was the ultimate goal, was to have some kind of march or some kind of presence on 11/11 in Washington, D.C.
So the end result of the free energy patent disclosure was the event.
No, that wasn't the event. That's what it turned into. That event turned into something else. That's what I originally joined this group of people for. That's what brought me in the door. That's what got me excited about being a part of this group of people. And once I was in the group of people, I started seeing that the route to get there was a little bit different than what I thought it was. And so I just kept moving forward as far as the disclosure was concerned and the route that, it seemed to be taking that was going to ultimately get this mutual mission accomplished.
And the mutual mission was the disclosure of the free energy patent?
From my perspective, that's why I started with this group, yes.
Is that how you located them, was through searching for this free energy patent?
Yeah, that is where I ended up getting introduced to this organization.
And when you reached out to them in February of 2017, was that the first time you had ever heard of the group?
The Full Disclosure Project, yes.
Okay. What about Roger Richards outside of the Full Disclosure Project?
That was the first time I had ever heard of a Roger Richards.
And how did you find him? Was it through a Google search or?
Again, I volunteered. I filled out an online form that the Full Disclosure Project had online if you wanted to volunteer your professional skills to this organization, or at least start the conversation about volunteering those skills, you would sign up on this online form, and then you may be contacted. And that's what happened for me. I filled out the form and I volunteered my skill as marketing and graphic design. And then I received a phone call from Roger Richards. Actually, I received a text from Roger Richards. We set up a phone call, and then I had a phone call with him. And that's when he invited me into the group.
Okay, so when he invited you into the group, he brought you into the Slack team, is that correct?
Correct.
And who else was part of that group at that point in time?
Well, there was probably about 25 or 30 people. Oh, I remember, I was the 22nd person. For some reason, that has stayed with me. So I was the 22nd person brought into that group, and then there were more to follow me. From that group at that time, I remember Roger, Corey Goode, Renee, Armenta. There was another woman called Renee. She had blonde hair. There was a French man whose name I don't remember, but he did some of the artwork for the t-shirts we had done. Honestly, there are others, but I'm not sure if they were in that Slack group.
Okay. So once you joined the Slack group, what was the first project that you were a part of after joining that group?
The very first project that I was a part of was putting together a t-shirt for Contact in the Desert, getting the designs together, getting the shirts printed, and then delivering those shirts in person to the Airbnb occupied by the group. And I brought those shirts in person for that. That was my first project.
Okay, and that was the Airbnb and Contact in the Desert, correct?
Correct.
And that was in June of 2017?
Correct.
Okay. From there, did you do anything else at Contact in the Desert other than bring the shirts?
I was a volunteer that year for Contact in the Desert through Contact in the Desert. So I was working for Contact in the Desert, again, as a volunteer. So yes, I was a speaker host in the rooms, and I was assigned to Corey Goode. I volunteered to be a part of Corey's speaker engagement there. That was on the insistence, actually, of the group to say, hey, Adrienne, if you are a volunteer, it would be great if you were the speaker host in Corey's speaker rooms. And so I was.
Okay, and as a speaker host, what were your duties?
Get water for the speaker, make sure the speaker's comfortable, make sure that everyone's in place, make sure that everyone who is supposed to be where they're supposed to be, the lights, whatever's happening, make sure that everything is gotten. On this particular one, Mr. Goode was very specific about having all the doors guarded. So I remember that was part of my duty, was to make sure that there were guards at every door. And that's not necessarily a normal speaker host duty, but it was for this particular stage.
Okay. So from Contact in the Desert, Where did your duties go with full disclosure project?
So okay, so you're saying where did I go from there?
Correct.
As far as my work with this group of people,
Correct.
is that the question?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear there. Well, there was a event that had been arranged. There was an event called the Eclipse of Disclosure that Roger and I believe Corey, yeah.
Oh, hold on one sec. Sorry, Ms. Youngblood.
It's the planes.
Yeah, it's okay. It's one of the perks of being in San Diego.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So there was an event that was being advertised as Eclipse of Disclosure, and tickets were being taken for this event. It was, I was not involved, and I just knew that this was happening with this group of people that I was working with. And the theater that was reserved for this event was in Weed, California, and it was at a university. And and that was basically what was happening. There was going to be an event. And as someone who's put on events, I saw that we were getting really, really close to the actual event, and there really wasn't a lot of movement happening. And mainly that was because at Contact in the Desert that year, Mr. Goode received an awful lot of criticism, and as well as Roger Richards, and they were very distracted by with defending themselves on social media, and the back and forth that happens, they were pretty much distracted, and I saw the distraction and the emphasis on all of this negativity while this event was supposed to be going on in August. And I knew, as a person who has the experience that I had, that the clock was ticking and actually gave me anxiety. So I reached out to Roger and pretty much
Sorry.
volunteered my event coordinating services and just let him know that I could at least go to the theater and start to see, what it looks like, where the vendors would go, and just, start those things. And because I was pretty close to Mount Shasta, it would be easy for me to do. So I did do that. I went to Weed, and I met with the owners of the university theater, not the owners, but caretakers, and was pretty horrified to see that it was absolutely stuffy. There was no window ventilation, and there was there was nothing on the outside. There wasn't really a place for vendors. But the most important piece was that there were no windows, and that this event was going to be taking place in this theater in August in California, which was really hot. And when I asked the man showing me what this, what do they do about this situation? And he said, we don't normally book the theater in August, but you could maybe get some swamp coolers, which I knew was ridiculous, because if we were going to have speakers and a live stream, swamp coolers weren't really going to work Plus, he had some funky way of rigging up those swamp coolers. So all in all, it was not a good choice for a place, having seen it. So I immediately went outside and sat down and cried. And then I let Roger and Corey know this was not an acceptable place to have an event, and I was going to go do some searching. So the original idea for that event was 500 seats in a theater in Weed. And so I found myself in looking online, and in that general area, there really wasn't anything holding 500 people, but I did happen upon the town of McLeod. And once I got to McLeod, I found the dance hall that held 500 people. And then I started talking to the merchants there, and they led me to a man who owned a 250-acre mill that I might be able to talk to, that we might be able to do some camping on. And so then it was all coming together for me as far as creating an experience where we could take over the town as a community, and the town was welcoming that. And I made a lot of good contacts there in order to create this new vision of how this conference was actually going to be implemented and transformed into something much bigger than what was anticipated. And I took videos and I sent them to both Roger and Corey and said, this is a fantastic opportunity. And I pretty much then got carte blanche to go for it, put it together, make it happen. And I needed to do that in about 8 weeks because it was fast approaching. And so I did.
Okay. And just to clear up something really quick, when you say that the first location was in Weed, is that a location?
Weed, California, yes.
Okay.
Weed, California. That is the place.
Okay. So you saw an opportunity, you seized it, you made it something much bigger. What was the time frame between you leaving, excuse me, Eclipse of Disclosure and getting everything set up for Dimensions of Disclosure?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. So Eclipse of Disclosure was in June, correct? Of 2017.
It was in August. It was in August of 2017.
Okay. Eclipse of Disclosure, oh, I'm sorry. Contact in the Desert was in June of 2017, correct? I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Correct.
Okay. And then you went to Weed, where it was where Eclipse of Disclosure was originally supposed to be, and decided that wasn't going to be the best option, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so you saw an opportunity to make this into something bigger, and you did, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what was the time frame between leaving Contact in the Desert and finding the new spot for Eclipse of Disclosure?
I don't know. 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, so where was the new location for Eclipse of Disclosure was McLeod, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you called and let Corey and Roger know, hey, I've got a better spot. We can make it a lot bigger. They said, okay, let's do it. And then what happened?
Yeah. We didn't say we could make it a lot bigger. said we could make it a lot better. It wasn't bigger. It was
Okay.
better.
Better. Got it. Okay, and then what happened?
Can you rephrase the total sentence question? I'm not sure where we're at.
Right, so when you got the go-ahead to set everything up, how far in advance was that to the actual date of the event?
Probably 8 weeks.
Okay, so this happened right after you left Contact in the Desert?
Yeah.
Okay. And when did Mr. Goode and Mr. Richards come out to take a look at the new location?
The day of the event, they had seen videos. I had taken a lot of videos.
Have those videos been produced to your attorneys?
That was through, it was through the Slack group that is no longer accessible. The videos that I took.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that last part. You said it was part of the
The
Slack group?
videos that I took were through the Slack group. That's how I was in contact with Roger and Corey. The videos were through the Slack group, and that Slack group has since been dismantled, and I couldn't go back into that Slack group to get that, to produce that for this discovery.
So there's no other copies of those videos except for what was in the Slack group?
Yeah, I could make another look. I could make another look.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That'd be great. Okay, so the conference rolls around, everybody shows up. How did the conference go? Did it go smoothly?
Yes, it was really nice.
And how many people were in attendance at that event?
Well, probably 400.
And did you and Mr. Richards work together a lot at that event?
Yes.
Is that where you guys got pretty close?
Yes.
Would you consider Mr. Richards a close friend?
Yes.
How often do you guys speak to each other?
Sometimes often, sometimes not often, depending on projects.
When you speak often, how often would that be?
I could talk to him during a project 4 times a day or once a week. It depends on the intensity of what we're doing, what we're working on, the details.
Are you guys working on any projects together right now?
No.
When was the last time you worked together on a project?
He was a producer on Trance.
And when did the filming of Trance wrap up?
And it wrapped up. It wrapped up. We were done filming Trance in April of 2021.
And do you guys still work together on anything related to that documentary?
Not really.
When was the last time you spoke with Mr. Richards?
Voice spoke. Last week.
What about texting?
Yes. Yeah, around my birthday. Yeah. Yeah. That would have been, I'm trying to think of the date we're at right now. A couple weeks ago.
And as you know, his deposition was supposed to happen yesterday, but he said he's in surgery. Are you familiar with the details of that?
No,
He didn't tell you that he was going in for surgery?
I found out when he was letting all of us know. Our lawyers included.
Do you know what kind of
Yeah,
surgery?
so objection, it calls for attorney-client communication. So I'll instruct her not to answer.
Okay, Mr. Webb, we have been promised a doctor's note on this alleged surgery for almost a week now, and we have not received it yet. Is there any status update on that?
Next question.
I mean, if you're gonna object and instruct her not to answer on something that you said you were gonna give us information on a week ago, you can assure we'll bring this up with the judge. Is that what you're gonna stand on that objection? An instruction?
Not my deposition today to answer questions. I'm happy to meet and confer with you off the record if you'd like. Not a problem.
Objection non-responsive. Okay. So after eclipse of disclosure, how often did you and Mr. Richards talk?
Often. After eclipse of disclosure, we talked quite a bit.
Did you work on a lot of projects together?
I helped with Above Majestic, which was something that was going on at the time, the beginnings of it. But that group was very involved in, right, he died. I was going to say Bill Tompkins, who actually died during eclipse of disclosure. I worked more with Roger as we folded into early 2018.
Did Mr. Richards ever, you mentioned Mr. Tompkins, did Mr. Richards ever interview Mr. Tompkins?
Friction Foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Were you there for that interview?
No.
Did you ever assist Mr. Richards in any other interviews?
Yes.
And whose interviews did you assist with?
David Wilcock, Corey Goode, Jordan Sather. That was for Above Majestic. Ultimately, there were a lot more. I mean, do you want me to like go through the entire documentary list? As a producer, that was my job. So to list off everyone, if that's what you want, I'm not clear.
Sure. So when as a producer, when Mr. Richards was taking these interviews, did you have any involvement with the management of where those videotaped interviews went?
Where the videotaped interviews went, no,
Okay. You don't know where they went?
I do not.
Has Mr. Richards ever referenced any of those interviews since you and Mr. Richards stopped working with Mr. Goode?
No, the interviews that I'm talking about happened post Mr. Goode, so, and the previous interviews, I wasn't involved in that part of it. I was not a producer on Above Majestic or Cosmic Secret. I was helpful in a lot of ways, but I was not a producer on those movies.
Okay. What email addresses do you have for Mr. Richards?
Wanderer Filmworks. That's the current one. Wanderer Filmworks, and he used to have another one, SBA.producer, I think. I don't ever communicate with him with that email address, but I do remember that was one he had when he was in that group.
Okay, and the Wanderer Filmworks, is that at gmail.com?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I want to talk about now your relationship with Mr. Kennedy. When did you meet Mr. Kennedy?
I met Mr. Kennedy on the phone more than I met him in person. I wasn't very involved with Mr. Kennedy. I was introduced to Mr. Kennedy through the whole SBA thing in 2019, in the early part of 2019. He was brought in to help Corey and Roger on with their projects.
Okay, and when he was brought on to help with the projects, what was your involvement, if any, with him?
I really wasn't involved anymore in, we had an agreement for 2018. I had an agreement with Corey and Roger as far as me doing events during 2018. And towards the end of 2018, after the 11/11 event that was created and done in Washington, D.C., I knew at that time I wanted to redirect my own purpose because it really wasn't moving in the direction that I originally volunteered for. And there was a lot of dissension, a lot of arguing, a lot of nonsense between Corey and Roger. I wasn't privy to the details. It was clear that this group was no longer being held together by any originally intended activist mission. And it was now moving into a direction of what I would call entertainment. And that is when Mr. Kennedy was brought in, for my understanding, was to help move Corey and therefore Roger into the realms of entertainment based on disclosure. But I wasn't interested in entertainment, so I was not really a part of that group so much. I was on the fringes of it. I had been involved with them so intensely. So of course we continued communication, but I wasn't involved in any of their projects upcoming.
Okay, so is it fair to say then that after Mr. Kennedy came in, the course of the group was heading more towards producing like documentaries and films versus events?
I really don't know what their intention was. I just knew that I wasn't going to be moving in that direction.
Okay, so you mentioned after the 11/11 event, you wanted to redirect your involvement. What is that what you were getting at as far as that? Like you were not interested in the films and that sort of thing. You wanted to be more involved in the events.
Yeah, I didn't want to be involved in the entertainment part of where I saw this moving. I was, you know, they were getting deals they were talking to different Hollywood people. They were working on movie deals and, you know, the graphic novel, the comic book, these things. This to me was all entertainment and not why I got involved in the group in the beginning. And it had morphed into something that I was working within the organization and with an intention of what I thought was the intention for why I was there as a volunteer. And then once it moved into another direction, and that was very clear that that's exactly where they were going, it was fine. I didn't have any hard feelings or anything. I thought, great, that's awesome that that's what they're going to do. It's just, this is where I get off the bus because I had other ideas about what I wanted to put out into the world with my energy.
Okay, and what was your involvement with the 11/11 event?
I organized it with Adrienne Valera and who had Disclosure Fest. We organized it together. I was in charge of the actual speaker tent for the actual disclosure speakers. He was handling the music and the entertainment and a lot of the infrastructure. And Roger was also involved in getting the people that would be speaking in the strictly disclosure tent and obtaining permits and things like that for us to do this kind of event on the lawn of the Lincoln Memorial.
Okay. How often do you speak now with Mr. Kennedy?
I would say now about once a week we speak. We make texts.
Here to answer the question. One question.
Yeah, we may text or email more than just once a week.
Are you working on any projects together right now?
No.
When was the last time you worked on a project with Mr. Kennedy?
This is a project I work on with Mr. Kennedy. Oh, I was working on a project with him around creating a platform, a platform that held influencers and things like that. But I'm not working on that project anymore.
A platform that held what?
Like influencers, movies, documentaries. So
Okay, and what would that be like a social media type platform?
I think it was more geared toward being an S5 platform. It's not really social media, but it was more than that. But that's the core essence of it.
What's an S5 platform?
Streaming video on demand.
And what was the name of that platform?
We didn't name it.
And you said that project's no longer ongoing.
I am no longer working on that project with Mr. Kennedy.
Okay. I want to focus now on some names that were disclosed to us in your initial disclosures. Hopefully this won't take too long. Jordan Sather, when was the first time you met him?
I met him in person at Contact in the Desert 2017.
And when was the last time you spoke with Mr. Sather?
I would say March of 2022, I sent him a text and sent him a link to Trance and asked him to take a look at it and let me know what he thought.
Did he respond?
No. Yes, he responded with yes, he was going to take a look at it and he'd get back to me. That was the last time I talked. He didn't get back to me.
Okay.
A lot of people.
Sorry?
You can say it.
I said a lot of people don't get back to me after that movie.
Okay. When was the last time you spoke with Mr. Sather before March of 2022?
I saw him at, I see him at ESETI. I believe I saw him at ESETI at ESETI Ranch. I saw him there. And that would have been 2019. So yeah, so then he came to DOD 2019. So I had communication with him then. And of course, he was involved with that, everything. Yeah, so I would say the last time I talked to him, it feels like I talked to him more than that, but I really haven't. I'm trying to think of when I've actually had direct conversation with him. I think it was in, 2020. Just back and forth conversation. I don't really have any business with Jordan Sather.
Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I'm on my third cup of coffee. I need to take a quick bathroom break. Do you guys want to take a 5-minute break real quick?
Sure, 5 minutes fine. So we'll be back at 11 our time, 11:54.
1:54. All right, great. See you then.
Okay, going off the record, the time right now is approximately 11:48 a.m.